Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Israeli soldier started jumping from the chapter to the third of the boat, start firing from the air.
Activists freed from Israel after the attack on the Gaza aid flotilla say Israeli commandos came out shooting. 9 were killed in the attack. According to Turkish media, 8 were from Turkey and 1 is U.S. citizen. We'll also get the latest on the Cooper Union art student who lost her eye after being shot in the face by an Israeli tear gas canister in a protest in the West Bank. Then President Obama met with Peruvian President Alan Garcia Tuesday amidst rising unrest in Peru over indigenous and environmental rights. We'll speak with actress Q'orianka Kilcher. She chained herself to the White House fence, her body painted black to represent oil. She was arrested along with her mother. They'll join us from Washington, D.C. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The bodies of the 9 dead activists killed by Israeli troops in the attack on the Gaza aid flotilla have been returned to Turkey. Forensic experts have confirmed that all 9 were shot with guns. 8 of the victims were Turkish nationals, and 1 was a U.S. citizen of Turkish origin. Some 450 of the remaining activists also arrived in Turkey earlier today after being released from Israeli custody. A number of wounded activists were immediately rushed to Turkish hospitals for medical treatment. Survivors of the assault continued to accuse Israel of firing on the ship before its soldiers repelled aboard. Al Jazeera cameraman Issam Zaatari spoke out Wednesday after returning home to Belgium.
Israeli soldier started jumping from the chapter to the third of the boat, start firing from the air to anyone, and there's through a chemical bomb, a sounding bomb, and gas bomb, a lot of noisy things you can listen at the same time. And I was lucky because I was filming all the things, and in around 6 minutes they start to attacking our boat.
The Israeli government continues to reject calls for an international inquiry and says any probe should be under its control and should focus mainly on operational mistakes. In a televised address, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dismissed international criticism of the assault as hypocrisy.
Once again, Israel faces hypocrisy and a biased rush to judgment. I'm afraid this isn't the first time. Last year, Israel acted to stop Hamas from firing thousands of rockets into Israel's towns and cities. Hamas was firing on our civilians while hiding behind civilians.
Netanyahu went on to deny that the passengers aboard the flotilla were peace activists, calling them, quote, violent supporters of terrorism. The Obama administration, meanwhile, continues to refuse to condemn the Israeli assault while rejecting calls for an end to the Gaza blockade. In an interview with Charlie Rose, Vice President Joe Biden said Israel should decide whether its siege of Gaza should continue. Biden also criticized the aid flotilla for trying to break Israel's naval blockade of Gaza.
You can argue whether Israel should have dropped people onto that ship or not, but the truth of the matter is Israel has a right to know. They're at war with Hamas. Has a right to know whether or not arms are being smuggled in. And up to now, Charlie, what's happened? They've said, here you go. You're in the Mediterranean. This ship, if you divert slightly north, you can unload it, and we'll get the stuff into Gaza. So what's the big deal here? What's the big deal of insisting it go straight to Gaza? Well, it's legitimate for Israel to say, I don't know what's on that ship. These guys are dropping 3,000 rockets on my people.
Biden's comments come as the U.S. voted against a United Nations Human Rights Council proposal to establish an independent international inquiry into the raid. The measure passed by a vote of 32-3. U.S. Ambassador Eileen Chamberlain-Donahue said Israel should carry out its own probe.
Unfortunately, the resolution before us rushes to judgment on a set of facts that, as our debate over the last day makes clear, are only beginning to be discovered and understood. It creates an international mechanism before giving the responsible government an opportunity to investigate this incident itself, and thereby risks further politicizing a sensitive and volatile situation.
We'll have more on the flotilla assault after headlines. BP's latest attempt to contain the worst oil spill in U.S. history has hit a new snag as the size of the disaster continues to grow. On Wednesday, a large underwater saw got stuck for 12 hours while slicing through the underwater well. BP says it'll try again to cut off and then cap the well. But the flow of oil could temporarily increase by as much as 20%, even if it succeeds. In an interview with the Financial Times, BP CEO Tony Hayward admitted the company wasn't prepared to handle the spill, saying, quote, "What is undoubtedly true is that we did not have the tools you would want in your toolkit." The White House, meanwhile, has ordered BP to pay for 5 more Louisiana Barrier Island sand berms to contain the spill. The berms will cost around $360 million. Blobs of oil are now reaching nearby states. Workers have scooped oil up from the shores of Dauphin Island, Alabama, and parts of Mississippi, and the oil sheen is now about 10 miles from the Florida Panhandle. In other spill news, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has launched a research vessel to probe findings of large oil plumes trapped underseas. BP has challenged scientists' claims to have discovered the Gulf plumes. Federal regulators, meanwhile, have approved the first new Gulf of Mexico oil well since President Obama allowed a temporary ban on shallow water drilling to expire last week. On Wednesday, the Minerals Management Service authorized a permit for Bandon Oil and Gas to drill at a site about 50 miles off the coast of Louisiana, just south of the Rockefeller State Wildlife Refuge and Game Preserve. Environmentalists have criticized the Obama administration for allowing continued drilling at shallow water sites. At an appearance in Pittsburgh, President Obama invoked the oil spill to urge support for passage of an energy bill in Congress. Obama said containing the oil spill is the nation's top priority.
It's a time when the worst environmental disaster of its kind in our nation's history is threatening the Gulf Coast and the people who live there. Right now, stopping this oil spill and containing its damage is necessarily the top priority, not just of my administration, but I think of the entire country. And we're waging this battle every minute of every day.
A senior United Nations official has formally asked the Obama administration to halt or scale back CIA drone strikes on alleged militant suspects in Pakistan. In a report to the UN Human Rights Council, Philip Alston, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial summary or arbitrary execution, said U.S. secrecy around the drone program is undermining international law. Alston will detail his findings before the UN Human Rights Council later today. The New York Times revealed last week the Obama administration modified rules on military commissions to protect drone operators from facing allegations of war crimes. The old rules defined, quote, murder in violation of the laws of war, unquote, as killings by those who don't meet, quote, the requirements for lawful combatancy. That definition could have implicated CIA drone operators who aren't members of the military. In Afghanistan, violence erupted Wednesday at the opening of an Afghan government meeting billed as an attempt to negotiate a truce with the Taliban. A large blast exploded and a gunfight erupted as Afghan President Hamid Karzai delivered an opening address. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack, calling the meeting a ploy by the U.S.-led occupation. Back in the United States, President Obama has expanded benefits for the same-sex partners of federal employees. On Wednesday, Obama said he'd ordered government agencies to provide benefits including assistance services, hardship transfers, and relocation expenses. Obama says existing federal law prevents him from taking further steps to provide same-sex couples with a full array of benefits offered to heterosexual married couples, and called on Congress to pass legislation to correct the discrepancy. And a prison guard at a privately run Texas immigration jail has been fired for allegedly sexually assaulting several immigrant women prisoners. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says the guard groped several women and forced at least one woman to have sex with him while transporting them to their deportation flights. ICE says the company hired to run the prison, Corrections Corporation of America, is on probation pending the outcome of a probe into the allegations. And those are some of the headlines. This is